Well, 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 well. There we are again, isn't it? There we are again. Hello, y'all. How are you doing? I'm just opening some, what's this? I'm just opening some pen things here so I can grab things as needed. Slightly chaotic. God, what's all this? Oh, yes. I was computing confidence intervals for correlation. But not right now. Painted 4 pens this week. When you say painted 4 pens, do you mean applied paint 2 pens, or took a canvas and painted 4 pens as a work of art, or maybe you painted pens on a wall? More information is required, isn't it? Hello, everyone. Painted on the barrels. I see. It's what I expected, but I thought I would just be annoying about it. That's what I do. Hello, Jenny. Did you notice I have a pocket yardlet for sale? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Well, what do we have here? We have hello from Toronto. We have Russia. That's a diverse crowd. I mean, we have Alberta here. I'm doing rather well. Oh, that's an interesting question. Any ambitions in writing your own books, either fiction or non-fiction? I sometimes think about it. There is something I have in mind, but I think I'm going to try to do something this month. Whether that actually leads to something, I don't know yet. That would be a non-fiction type thing. It's not about pens either. But we will see. We will see. I kind of had that in the back of my mind. Yeah. So that will happen, maybe not, who knows, but yes. No, Jenny, it does accept a converter. I'm sure we can find a converter that fits this. A little converter. Should I have a look for you? I'm a dangerous man. I do have some small converters. I think one of them might fit. You have to excuse me for 1 second because... Talk amongst yourselves. Stop talking. Oh, it's right next to a microphone, so this is really dreadful because I don't want to deafen you. Let me just put this here. I'm sorry. I'm willing to bet that one of these converters is going to fit in there. Just for you, Jenny. What's help me here? This is a Monteverde mini converter. Let's see what that does. With bated breath. Nah, doesn't fit, does it? No, the converter fits, but see, that piston gets pushed in. I think the only thing that you have then is one of 2 options. I don't know if I have both here. I'm sorry. It's a lot of noise. You have the option of the Kaweco converter, but because they don't hold a lot of ink, but it fits perfectly. And I found oh, God damn it. It fits, but the barrel doesn't. Okay, now I'm afraid that you may be right. The only other option that I can come up with, but I don't know if I have that thing here or if Aziza has it in Toronto. There is the Templar mini converter. But I may not have that here. Putain, no. So that might fit. That might fit. It's the only thing I can come up with. Sorry, I tried. Let's continue. What else do we have? Scrolling back a bit. Anyway, beautiful pen though. It is for sale, people. If you want a yard lead pocket, make your deal. Anyway, I'm just kidding. No, actually, I'm not kidding because it is for sale. But anyway, hello. Hello. Yes, Making of the Mandalorian, the thing. Yeah, I have to watch it yet, but I will. Assam and Darjeeling, nice. We have USA, we have Connecticut, also USA. We have the UK, Bulgaria. Sorry, that sounded like it was Bulgarian. No. Did you do? I really like Bulgarian Orthodox music. It's a nice chant style. What else? Oklahoma. I really enjoyed the Nibmeister video. Yes, as I have you here. So it was my plan to do a few more of those sort of theoretical videos. Again, of course, I will also keep doing reviews. But I like the idea of having some, once in a while, have a bit more theoretical video. I talk about such topics like, what is a Nibmeister? Why would you go there? If you like it or if you don't like it, you can let me know here, because then I have a bit of an idea of whether people appreciate that. The Nibmeister video was very well received, but I'm just curious if that's something you find interesting. Again, in addition to, not instead of reviews. There will still be reviews, just so you know. Okay. Ah, yes, Max Performer. Nice. I want to ask if you have seen dry issues with black-coated nibs. I have not had any luck with black-coated nibs. They always run dry. That's an interesting question, and I could see how it could happen. The very short answer is dryness I don't immediately remember, but I have had black-coated nibs that were considerably less smooth than non-coated nibs. For example, I had a Faber-Castell Emotion with a super smooth steel broad nib, but then I also had that black Faber-Castell Emotion with the black-coated nib, and that was way less smooth. But then I saw that the tipping material had also been coated, and you can just take some micro mesh and polish that off, and then it becomes smoother again, but then it won't look black. I wonder if that coating stays on there, if it doesn't get rubbed off on the paper over time, because it's continuous scraping across the paper. Dryness, what could cause that? Well, I suppose, but I'm just theorizing here, I suppose that if you have coating on the inside of the tines, maybe that could hamper ink flow a bit. Whether it does, I don't know. I haven't experimentally verified this, but I wonder if it would be that. Or overall coating, like at the bottom of the nib, where it rests against the feed, if that somehow hampers ink flow. I don't know. But it's an interesting idea. If anyone else has experience with black nibs running dry, then let us know in the comments, or in the chat, sorry. I'm in YouTube video mode. Have you ever tried a fountain pen that was so bad, either in absolute terms or really bad for the price, that it left you in a foul mood? No, foul mood, I don't think so. But yes, there have been occasions where pen switch is generally bad. For example, because they had incredibly scratchy nibs. Or because they had terrible flow. There have been pens that simply would not flow. And that's an issue. And it's annoying and frustrating. Foul mood, I don't know. But it happens. It happens. I've experienced that sometimes, and it's frustrating. It's especially frustrating when someone has purchased a pen like that, and then it just won't write. Because if a fountain pen doesn't write, what is a man, etc. But then what is a pen, I guess? What is a pen, etc. Because then it just won't write, will it? And it's useless. Hello from Hong Kong. That's a nice yard lead. Yeah, in fact, it is a fantastic yard lead. It's beautiful and it's for sale. It's a cute outlet, but it's cute because it's small. So it is the Victorian finish, but when posted, it's a decently sized pen. You could own it today. Take it out of the shop today. Yeah, like the Nibs. Okay, good. Yeah, so the Kaweco, yeah, we tried the Kaweco converter. It was a good idea, but nice. Well, I'm sorry, Jenny, but I think that the simplest solution is to just have both, right? Have both. They make a wonderful set because, unlike the Ardelet Viceroy Grand, both the standard and the pocket have the same diameter. So it would be a superb set, the prize of your collection. I'm sorry. Have I had a gander at the Ghost of Tsushima yet? No, I have not. I would have to check it out. The Kaweco Mini Plunger Converter. Yeah, that could do it. Or, again, there is the Templar Mini Converter, which is basically just... I really thought I had it here, but it looks like I don't. Strange. Anyway, the Templar Mini Converter, basically... I don't seem to have that either. I'm sorry for the noise, but you asked. Actually, you didn't ask at all. I just forced this down your throat. Oh God, so much noise. It's so early for this. Yeah, I don't have it. The Templar Mini Converter is basically a Chinese Jinhao converter, which they shortened. So they left the nipple intact, cut off a piece, cut part of the piston off, open up the piston turning knob, put it back together so that now a piece like what do we have? What's a normal? This is a normal converter. So you basically cut out this piece of plastic in the middle here, and then you put this piece back on. You cut a part of the piston off, and you cut this open so that the piston can come out at the back a bit, and then you end up with something that's the size of a cartridge. And you can buy them, Templar Mini Converter. It's just a thing you can purchase online. I'm pretty sure you can also do it yourself. That might actually fit in that yard lid. Anyway. Hello, what's the difference between celluloid and cellulose acetate? Yeah, I refuse to answer questions where I sort of make up an answer on the spot, so I'm not going to do that. I want to say, but this all I'm trying to say is I have to look it up what the exact difference was again, and I don't lie or pretend to sort of flatly bullshit my way through these kinds of things. It's a difference in the chemical constituency, if I remember correctly. So there is the actual celluloid, and there is something that is celluloid-like, but that is not the typical celluloid, if I remember the story correctly. And I think the pragmatic answer for pen users is celluloid is a bit more sought after than cellulose acetate. There is no OMAS, I think, Arco cellulose acetate, for example, but like it's something like that. Someone will be able to point this out much better than I can. Have you had any experience buying pens from Pensachi, Japan? No, I haven't. Aziza has, though. And I always hear good things about Pensachi, good pricing and very fast shipping, but I don't have personal experience with it. What have I inked today? I have 4 things inked today. I don't know if what you see is mirrored from what I see, but anyway, there is the Cross Peerless Darth Vader. There is the Lambrou Pens LB6, the classic Pens LB5, and the Omas Paragon. Grand Paragon, actually. It doesn't really make sense to say that in French. Anyway, just for the fun of it. What do you think of Pelikan M400 extra fine nib compared to that of M200 extra fine nib? Well, I think the 400 is gold, right? And the 200 is not. So it is definitely, I remember the M400 nibs to definitely be a bit bouncier. I don't really want to say springier because then people think it's a flex nib. It's not a flex nib. It is a bit softer, as you write. Smoothness, I don't know if there's much of a difference really, but it's a different. It feels different because the gold is a bit softer. How can you tell? How can you tell how a pen will write without inking it for sending retail purposes? Well, there's a couple things that I look for, but of course you have to, like, the best thing of course is to use it, right? But if you can't do that, one thing that I typically try to look for is what the nib looks like if I can see it in a picture, because sometimes you can see, like, if the tines of a nib look like this, then you rest assured it's not going to write properly, because that's just going to hamper ink flow. So that's what I try to look for. Beyond that, I don't think that's much telling, because it's an empirical question. You have to hold that pen, ink it up, not dip it, but ink it, and then write with it. And that's the difficult thing, right? Even if you have a brick and mortar store, they typically, for understandable reasons, don't allow you to ink up a pen, but just dip it. But a dipped writing experience is very different from an actual inked up writing experience, because you saturate the feed with ink. It's very different from what you would have, or what you would experience if you would use that pen for a longer period of time, while it's actually inked up and ink is coming from whatever type of reservoir it has. Let's see what's in that box. Did you mean this? There's all sorts of things in here, many of which are not that interesting, but some of the more interesting things is there is this really nice pen polishing cloth I got from Brian Greer of Chatterley Luxuries. It's not a silver, it's just a pen, like just a little cloth to polish your pens. There are some of these. Jack recently gave me one of these, my friend Wacko Jacko. That's for smoothing nibs. I got some cartridges, but because I'm mildly obsessed with organizing things, I always tie the cartridges together with a rubber band. I know it's weird, but otherwise they're just everywhere. There are parts of pens, like this is for my inventory pocket pen, some of the finials and such. There's a silver polishing cloth. There is a random Pen BBS nib unit with a feed that is completely destroyed. But the plastic they use in the fins of their feeds is so soft that they break off really easily. My favorite little box. Oh, there's a brass shim too. You know, there's some O-rings. Enzo XS. That's what those are for. And there is another baggie which has just pen, like a little bit of, I don't really want to say pen restoring stuff, but there are some brass shims. There's some shellac. There's a bit of talcum powder for pen sacks. There is a micro mesh, that kind of stuff. Now I have my little Kaveco tin, and this I actually keep stuff that I use quite a bit. I have my original authentic yard lead polishing cloth. I have my Conid tool and some spare parts that they send you, like O-rings. I have a Twisby wrench. I have another Twisby wrench. Works on M800s and M1000s, don't forget. I have, this is a Mont Blanc tool to open up Mont Blanc pens. This is a rubber, but not the rubber you think about. This is very good. If you want to pull the nib in a feed, you can very gently slide this in and you have a good grip. You can pull that. I have my greasing tool, which is a toothpick. I have a SIM card removal tool, which also is sometimes very useful to unscrew certain parts of certain pens. And then finally, from Dale Beebe of pen tooling, I have a Visconti nib removal tool, which doesn't work on all Visconti pens. That's it. It's not as spectacular a box as it may have seemed, I fear. Somewhere in there is also there's silicone grease. I just go to the Home Depot and I buy this. It's a lot cheaper than it is in pen stores, but it is just silicone grease, but not silicone cement. You can use that once on a pen, and then it will never ever move again. All right, or open up, or whatever it's supposed to do. Jenny says she's happy with what she has. She's practicing because she's not so used to the broad nib. Well, this pocket also has a broad nib, so if you had two, the practice would go twice as fast. That's impressive logic. What else do we have? I was just curious if you're in contact with Matt from the Pen Habit. In his last YouTube video, he extensively spoke about you as a friend and mentor, and seems so weird to see his channel. Yeah, yes, we are in touch. I wouldn't say weekly or something, but once in a while we do send you an email. I think he's doing quite well with what he's doing now, and I think it was just time for him to move on and do something else than pens. And I think he's happy. So that's what matters most, I think, right? All right, what else do we have? How much do I want for my LB5? Around $6,000 we can start talking, because the last one I think went on eBay for $5,800. So do you drink Yerba Mate? I have no clue what Yerba Mate is. Yerba Mate. I'm looking this up because I've never heard of it. I'm sorry. Gap in my 8 health benefits of Yerba Mate backed by science. Herbal tea. Interesting. Well, the fact that I had to look it up answers the question of whether I have had it. No, I have not had it, but it looks interesting. I should check it out one day. I'm loving my SBREBROWN ink. Great for everything. I know, isn't it? I'm biased, but I obviously I'm biased, but I like it. I like it too. I think what I like about it is that it really has the properties that I wanted, namely something that is a warm brown, but that also shades nicely, and that shading I think they nailed pretty well. So I think that's yeah. I'm happy with how it came out. Sean Designer, excellent pocket pens. Yes, they are. I do have one. I don't have it here under arm's reach, but yeah, they are very nice. And also Ian is a really nice guy, and he's the type of guy that you kind of want to support his business, because he is so nice and caring, and cares about a lot of things, not just pens, but also cares about the environment, what's going on in the world, these kinds of things, which I really appreciate in a person and a pen maker. What do you think of the Pilot Metropolitan? It's my only fountain pen. I use it with the Con 40. I have Pilot Metropolitan too. I don't know where. Oh, here. There are many Pilot Metropolitans, but this one is mine. I kind of like it. This one has a fine nib too, so it's a very fine writer. But it's a nice pen, and it's a good everyday pen, I think. They did a good job with the way they designed it. So yeah, it's a nice pen. Reliable. Do you have Montblanc Meisterstück 149 or Pelikan M1000 in your private collection? No, I do not. Hi, I have 2 Xizo pens, Phantom and Maestro Seashell. Both write really dry in less than an A5 page. I have cleaned them several times with no results. The gold plating on the nibs on the side that is touching the feed is peeling off. Sometimes there are gold sparkles on top of the nib. And don't complain about it, that you just created your own sparkly ink. So is this the cause of the ink flow issues? I have no idea. If it is not a part of the nib that contacts the feed, I would doubt it. My first check would be, but if it actually runs dry, in less than an A5 page. That sounds more like an air exchange issue with the feed, and that's not something that you can fix very easily yourself. There are people who hack feeds, and it is doable, but that's not like a 30-second operation. You kind of need to know what you're doing, and it's the results are variable, which is not. I don't mean that as a reflection on you, but I mean that's the kind of stuff where if the pens are valuable to you, you really like them. That's why I would say then bring in a Nibmeister, because they know how to do those things without any issue. It's easier than trying to do it yourself. Sometimes what you could do if you're using it, for example, I don't know how you use it, but if you use it with a converter, you could try to use another converter or use a cartridge. I've sometimes found that with, for example, my Oldwin, that's a very pretty pen, which has a Waterman cartridge converter system, but with a converter, it runs dry. It just stops writing. But with a cartridge, it does not. And I've just taken one Waterman cartridge. The advantage is they're pretty big, right? So it actually holds more ink than a converter does. I just refill it, and then it writes without issue, and it does not run dry. It can write the entire cartridge dry without the pen actually stopping to write. I could try another Waterman converter. Maybe it's just the one that came with it that was faulty, but for me, this works. I mean, it's a little bit more of a hassle, but it's really not that bad. In any case, I'm trying to tell you what to do, but that can be, I'm trying to say is that can be a way to diagnose the problem. Because if your pens write fine with a cartridge in them, then it was the converter, right? There's something that doesn't close properly, or there's an air leak in it, or something like that. I enjoyed that vid. We're talking about the Nibmeister. I would like to have a collection of different nibs, and a Nibmeister seems a good way to have pens I like with nibs I want. Yeah, exactly. It is. And I think that's what makes them interesting. Plus, you can get nibs that you can't get commercially. If you would like something like an architect nib, there are the new Naginata Togi nibs. But first of all, those are very expensive. And second of all, that's a very specific, that's one brand. You wouldn't be able to get a Mont Blanc with an architect nib, unless there was some anyway, that's very hard. So in that case, a Nibmeister can really have a positive effect, because they can just grind you an architect or an oblique or whatever. So you can get nibs that you wouldn't be able to get on that pen, like stock nibs, I mean. I picked up a Lamy 2000 steel broad nib. Can you get a stub nib for them? I don't think so, because I don't think Lamy does stub gold nibs. They have their stub steel nibs, but I don't think they do stub gold. And I don't think I've ever seen a 2000 with a factory stub. There is a factory double broad, but not I don't think a stub. Martin says that his Kaweco Sport AC has a black coated nib. So far, no problems. Okay, so then that's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't immediately know of dryness, because that's what the question was about. I don't know that I've really experienced. That was a really strange sentence. I don't remember ever having had particular dryness just because it was a black nib. Yeah. The theoretical podcasts are great. I would like one on pen materials. That's an interesting idea. Let me write that down. Pen materials. Thank you. I like that idea too. Then I can look up what cellulose acetate was again. Okay. Any pen you intended to review and ended up not posting the review for any reason? Yes. It has happened once that someone sent me a pen to review. And out of courtesy, I will not mention who that was, but it was someone who had just started a pen company, and the pens performed subpar. It was just the way it was at that point. And he gave me some suggestions on how to make them right, but they still end up not writing perfectly. So he wanted to see the reviews before they were posted, if possible. I sent it to him, sent him the reshot version, and he asked them to not be posted. So that's it has happened. That was only once, and I also understand. But here's the thing. I think we've had this discussion before, so I'll keep it brief. But I try to be sensitive to the effect that I have on a pen maker. I like to approach my reviews as positively as possible, and sometimes it's not possible. I can't. If I get a pen and it doesn't write, then it doesn't write. But if someone is starting up a business and they simply don't have the whole process pinned down yet, and they send me something that doesn't work perfectly, if I then show that in a video and say this pen is subpar, what effect will that have on their company? This was a little while back, but don't forget right now I'm approaching 53,000 subscribers, which doesn't mean that every video gets 53,000 views. But still, what is the effect of my words on someone's budding company? And now he took that as, I think, input on like feedback on how to improve his products, and how those products sell out easily. So I think at that point, for me, that was the correct decision. Now there would be people, I think, who would say, no, you should just post that anyway, and just that's their problem. I understand that viewpoint as well, but I try to be a kind person, which is not always easy. But there is that. So this is you like comics with great power, etc. And that is something that is on my mind, because I want to be honest in my reviews, but I also don't want to harm companies. And sometimes, like if Montblanc launches another fountain pen that is limited because they only made 5,000, but it's also a $3,000 pen, then I think I can be very critical about it, because then they have the pretensions of, look at this, look at what we have created. But if it's a little one-person operation, then I think the story is a little different, in my mind. And other people may disagree, but that's how I try to be helpful and kind. Vlaanderen. Hello, hello. I have a Homo sapiens Bronze Age that rides very well, but the vacuum filler system is very stiff and hardly fills at all. Suggestions. Well, with that type of pen, with a bit of luck, you can unscrew the nib section. No, sorry, the nib unit. Sorry, the section doesn't come off. The nib unit. If you can unscrew the nib unit, then you have access to the barrel, and then you can put a little bit of silicone grease in the inside of the barrel, and that may make the operation smoother. But be very careful when you unscrew the nib unit, because you can misalign the nib and the feed, and sometimes those units don't come out. In which case, if you're in Belgium, go to a shop, a brick and mortar shop. I'm completely blanking on that shop. What is it? Fountain Pen World, I think, in Belgium. Also La Couronne de Conte, Tilburg, that's southernish, the Netherlands. There they will have a Visconti wrench, and they'll be able to take out that nib for you. And then you can grease it up. And once it's come out, it's much easier to unscrew the next time. Usually that helps, because I think that if there is too much resistance, then you don't have a smooth action, and then you don't get a nice vacuum, and then it will not fill up. I think that's what it is. That would be my impression. Are Molteni made by the same man company as Leonardo? They used to be, but I don't think they are anymore. Also, which do you prefer? Molteni Modello 54, Leonardo Momento Zero Grande. For me, the Leonardos. I have a small preference for the Leonardos. There's nothing wrong with the Moltenis. What is this? Here's a 54. And here's a Grande. I like the Grande a little better. Yeah, they're both nice pens. But for me personally, yeah, Leonardo. I like them a bit better. I like their gold nibs a little better. The steel nibs are also nice, but the Leonardo gold nibs are really nice. They are very, I know they're very expensive, but you also get a very nice quality for them, in my mind. If black plating makes the nib run dry, wouldn't rhodium plating do that too? Or maybe rhodium is smoother than black coating. Yeah, I guess that's also a bit of the properties of that material. Some may conduct ink better than others, or make it, I don't know. Have you tried the Noodler's Triple Tail Flex Pen? I have not. I can try it out. What are you asking for the yard lead? Don't know. What you offering? I have to briefly interrupt this program to look up the price. I know that they're expensive. Especially the small one is relatively expensive for its size. Yeah, 900 pounds. 900 pounds. That equates to $1,177. Well, here's the deal. I don't have a box, but I will give you a brand spanking new polishing cloth. $900. $900. And I'll include shipping, uninsured. If you want insured, I can quote you a price. $900. This could be yours. With a broad nib. That's really sweet. Okay, what is this? Why is there's a weird fluffy white thing? Strange. I got white new socks. They're just very cheap tennis socks. I don't play tennis, and I washed this, and there is white fluffy stuff. I thought I had terrible dandruff all of a sudden, but it was just white fluff from washing it, and this came off the socks. And that was on my beard. Someone pointed out, by the way, that this is SBREBROWN, and that is correct. Not only is this SBREBROWN, but this color of the sideburns of my beard is SBREBROWN. So the story is, I took out some of these hairs, send it to Dynamite. No, I didn't. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Let's move on, for the love of God. Hello. I've been into different hobbies, but most of the time, I have a period of addiction, then get kind of bored and can't manifest the same level of interest again. How do you remain interested? I think I may actually have done a video on that a while ago. I think you have to try and explore different things. So maybe different nibs, maybe different filling systems, maybe different materials, maybe go to a pen club, maybe read up on something, maybe think of if there's something you would like to focus on in collecting pens. I think these are the kinds of things that keep things interesting. And again, with Nibmeisters, you can always have a pen customized, have it ground. It'll cost a bit of money, but it typically won't cost as much as a new pen. And you get a whole different pen out of it, And that can be really interesting to some people. Yeah. And I think that's something that keeps it interesting. More so than just another pen and another pen and another pen and another pen and another pen, because at some point that does get boring. I'm sorry for the noise. I'm just clearing up these converters because they're getting on my nerves, just all hanging in there. What is the most hyped pen you reviewed? Well, at some point there was the Noodler's Nippon set that was very, very hyped up. Yeah, that's just it. It was very hyped up. I don't know if I have much else to say because there is the review. But that I think was very hyped up. And maybe maybe even more than that was the Mont Blanc 149 with the calligraphy nib. People really, really wanted to see that, and I understand. So there is that. Yeah. Noodler's triple tail pens are very nice pens. Yeah, I'll see if I can con someone out of one, and then we'll come back to this. Please review Camlin Trinity. I can look into that. I'll write it down. I have to write all these things down. So what do we got? Noodler's triple tail. And what was the other thing that we said? Camlin Trinity. No promises, but I'll try. Do you have experience with Acetate pens? The long wait times put me off, and I think I will order one within a year or so. I have no experience with them. I know of them, but I don't even think I've ever held one. I'm sure they're high quality. I mean, it's a Japanese pen. It's basically handmade, so I'm sure the quality will be outstanding. But I haven't actually touched one. The Leonardo Cuspide is amazing looking, but the price is prohibitive. But I was wondering what it was made of. I don't know, actually. I may also try the Con Salvatore out of the Cuspide, although they were limited, weren't they? I don't think I'll have one to spare, but I'll check into one. What else do we have? Resin. Yeah, that is what I wanted to say, but I didn't want to say anything without being sure. Thank you, pen friends. I just wanted to say, says Ultima Q, I appreciate your stoicism videos along with your pen videos. Thank you, thank you. They are interesting to do. They're fun to do. I find it very helpful. So I always hope that it helps some other people too. Please give your views on the Ranga 8B. That's another one I haven't tried, but I have to try. I have to try and contact Ranga. Does anyone in your college comment about your obsession with fountain pens? It happened. It's happened. At some point I was at Tim Hortons, which is, if you're not familiar, is sort of like a Canadian Starbucks, but less expensive. I was in the college, and our old dean, who was seconded to do something else with another function, was behind me in line, and he said, "So, Stephen, I hear you are a fountain pen aficionado." I was like, "Oh, what have you heard?" But he was very nice. He was very sweet. A very nice guy. But he was too, and he had a Schaefer, and he loved his Schaefer. And we talked about how it's a Zen-like moment to ink up the pens and all that. It was really, really fun. So yeah, it happens, and sometimes with students as well. They find out because they sometimes, you never would have guessed, but they sometimes Google their instructors, and then they find out about the pen stuff. And it's usually fun. And some have even been converted to fountain pen users. Some students started to use fountain pens because of the videos, which is really fun. Do you have insurance for walking about with that value of pens? No, not really. Where can we buy used pens of the flagship good brands, as most of the good flagship good brands are way out of reach, especially in India? I would say the regular channels, eBay, Fountain Pen Network, Virtual Pen Show on Instagram, and there are others, penboard.de. Penboard also has very interesting pen parts. I recently bought this from Tom Westerich, who is one of the penboard guys, because I needed this. Cutest box ever. Here are two Oma's nib collars. You can find interesting things on penboard. That's where I would go. These kinds of channels, because if you like the thing with eBay especially is you could be ripped off. But Fountain Pen Network I think is a little bit more secure. Virtual Pen Show is a little bit more secure, but still you have issues. Like you can still have issues. Not everyone is nice. Good morning, Sue. Nice to see you again. A bit of a weird question. But I really like questions that start that way, though. But could you explain the sensation of disgust, grossness, as in why does it feel a bit gross when someone burps even though there's no actual threat to you? Yeah, I think it's an evolutionary thing. And I think that there also is a cultural component to it. For example, babies have zero issues with excrement. Shite, in other words. Whereas adults are immediately disgusted and like, no, you shouldn't touch that. But babies have no issues with that. Change a baby's diaper, see what happens. So somewhere along the line, right, you have to learn, or you must learn, that that is bad. Same thing with all kinds of bodily functions. That is bad and disgusting and all that stuff. Because you're not born with it. And there are certain things that make a lot of sense to us, or would make a lot of sense for us to be disgusted by. For example, the smell of rotting meat. You know that if you're going to eat that, you're going to get very sick. So that warning signal is very helpful. And I think some of those things are probably hardwired. That's what I meant by evolutionary. Like, it makes sense. Like rotten food that's off. It's not wise to eat that. So as a result, right, it makes sense that you experience disgust. But then with other things, I think it's a matter of you have to learn that. And then there are certain, think, for example, of specific ethnic foods. I always find that a really strange term because, I mean, all food is ethnic. I mean, it's always part of a culture. But anyway, think of specific cultures that eat things that other cultures would find very upsetting. Certain African cultures where raw goat testicles are a delicacy, for example. A lot of people in the West would say, whoa, no. And even if we're going to eat it, they would probably at least cook it first, not eat it, like cut it off the goat and just eat it. Which I'm not trying to ridicule this or anything, but what I'm trying to say is that is interesting because that gives us a very visceral reaction of I think I once saw an episode of, I want to say it was Bear Grylls, but it could be somewhere else. And Bear Grylls eats all kinds. It was one of those sort of survival guys, and they eat all kinds of things, bugs and whatever. But then he was fed the testicles, and he was retching and vomiting it up. So it's interesting, right? It's interesting. I find it interesting. Now, just from a neuroscientific perspective, one area that we really strongly associate with disgust is the insula. Full name, the insula of Ryle, but nobody ever says that. The insula. So here's the brain. This is the front. This is the back. This is the bottom. This is the top. And if I peel away this part of cortex, and you see there's another bit of cortex right here. And that area is the insula. It's kind of like the cortex kind of folds in on itself, and in that fold is the insula. So it's right there. So it's right there. And that area is very important for disgust. And interestingly enough, all kinds of disgust. So not just you smell something that's disgusting or you taste something that's disgusting, but also if you watch a video of something disgusting, that activates. But even social disgust, if you're disgusted by someone's actions, that area is active as well. And it's also an interesting gustatory area. So it's very important for taste. It processes taste, which is interesting because, of course, disgust and taste kind of go hand in hand. So very interesting. I know that was a bit of an answer to your question, but that'll be my stab at it. What else do we have? You have a good singing voice, speaking as a choral singer. I appreciate that. I've never heard that before. But thank you. I appreciate that. Have I sung in a choir? No. I think the choir would be shut down, my friend. But again, thank you. I, says Jason, bought a Parker I Am at a charity shop yesterday for a really good price. Yeah, that's sometimes it happens. Not very often, but sometimes it happens. Which is always fun. What is the safest way to remove tarnish from the bronze clip and rings on a Visconti Homo sapiens lava pen? You can buy it's literally in there. Bronze, sorry, I couldn't figure out the word. Bronze polishing cloths. I have one here. I just saw it. It's even by Visconti. This orange thing, the polish cloth. You just take it off. I wouldn't use any corrosive chemicals or something. But those cloths are very innocent and they polish it nicely. It takes a bit of elbow grease. but on bronze and copper. But it works. I once had the Monte Grappa mule that was copper, and it patinas very quickly when it gets in touch with your skin. And I polished it up, and it was, again, elbow grease. It was quite a lot of work, but you can get it completely shiny again, and then it will patina again, of course. O-rings sold at my stationery shops. Oh, sold out, sorry, at my stationery shops. Can they be bought at hardware stores? What size to ask for? Yes, you can. What size you need, I wouldn't be able to tell you from the top of my head. But you can, if you have calipers or even just a ruler, you can measure is that ink? Yes, just checking out. I'm not bleeding. That happens. You measure the inside of the O-ring, and I think that should be all you need. If you have the old one, it shouldn't set you back a whole lot. Now, how to make sure they don't dry out? Yeah, that's a good question. Do not use Vaseline, because Vaseline can break down. It has petroleum distillate in it that can break down rubber, which is why it's not a good idea to use Vaseline as a lubricant for pen parts that have rubber on them. Silicone grease. I have that, for example, on this yard lead. Sorry, I'm not pushing this one. You see, there's a rubber O-ring on the section there, and it was very squeaky when I got it. It just makes sure that it says to ensure that the barrel doesn't unscrew accidentally. I put a little bit of silicone grease on once. Now listen, it's completely smooth, and it's not worn out. Knock on wood, but I mean it's good. So silicone grease is fine because that doesn't destroy the rubber. That's what I would do. Would you recommend Appelboom pens? Yes. I picked up a Pilot Tank eyedropper that came with a little tub of silicone grease. Yes, exactly. It works. Yeah, that's another good one. Brasso. Brasso is those little bottles that you can use to remove tarnish. That works well. Yes, I'm sorry. Mate instead of mate. I said yerba mate, but I kind of like mate more. Yerba mate. Anyway. Where do you purchase SBREBROWN? That depends a bit on where you are. Ackerman is the source. And there are other companies that sell it in the US. Vaness does. Lemur Ink does. Lay Wines in Toronto does. So there are options. Not every country of the world, no. Hello. How do you like the Rutledge Stoicism Handbook? It was good. It's a very broad range of topics, including the effect of Stoicism on Shakespeare, which was very interesting choice, but interesting. What it didn't really offer, but I mean there are other books that do, in my mind, was a clear expose of what Stoicism is. So they skirted all very complicated topics like what is the effect of Stoicism on French existentialism and such, without actually really going into detail in my mind of what Stoicism is. But maybe you are expected to know the basics if you read that book, because that is an academic handbook, which would make sense to me. But it was good. Like most folks, I use a Sharpie to write on plastic bags. Do you know of a fountain pen ink that will write on poly bags and dry quickly? No, Noodlers used to have the dry erase inks, which were actually quite nice, but I don't know if they still make them, and it's dry erase, so it likely would come off. I don't think even Noodlers had that's a weird sentence. Even Noodlers, I think, did not have an actual permanent marker ink. But I wonder what would happen if you were to take some sort of bulletproof ink, say by Noodlers, in a Preppy with a felt tip in it, which Preppy makes. You at least used to be able to buy them. I think from Goulet you could get the different tips, like the felt tip and the rollerball, and the I don't know if they still do, but they used to. And then you would have your own Sharpie, because I don't see why that noodles ink would work, especially those super hardcore bulletproof, that kind of stuff. That might work, I think. We seem to enjoy the Nibmeister video, so there would be, I think there will be some more then. I liked it too. Question on the Nibmeisters you mentioned. Do they work on vintage or classic pens like the Parker 45? Yeah, they work on whatever you... this is not... sorry, that's... the way I was going to say it may sound a bit... I didn't mean to sound unpleasant, but they will work on whatever you pay them for. And I mean that seriously. Like they will... Whatever you want, they will work on. Now, having said that, there are some nibs that are hard to work with. For example, I once asked Greg Minuskin, Nibmeister if you want, but nib retipper. I always think of him as a nib retipper, but he has great skill at that. If he could retip a Parker 45, because I thought it would be, I had one, I thought it would be fun to put a really broad nib on it. I thought it would be fun. And he said, no, I cannot work on those nibs. That is a fragile material to retip, but that's retipping. If it's about tuning, yeah, I don't see why Nibmeister would not be able to do that for you. But contact the Nibmeister. Ask them. They will know, especially with classic pens. They typically, at least in my experience, they sometimes have a list of pens. These are pens I don't work on. But there's a very short list. There is a specific reason, like these nibs are so fragile that I can't work on these, or this or whatever. But that's up to them, and they will be able to inform you. So no issue. When sending a nib for a grind, how do you decide on the amount of feedback if you're using two different but equally enjoyable types of paper? Like, you mean how much feedback you would want? I think that's really up to you. That's a personal question. You have to figure out what you like. Like, I like to have nibs that have a tiny bit of feedback left. I don't like something that is so smooth that I don't feel it moving across the paper. But that's personal. The best thing to do, but I realize that may not be an option, but the best thing to do is to be in the physical presence of a Nibmeister. For example, at a pen show, and give it to them and say, I want less feedback, or I want more feedback, and they will do that. And they will give it to you, and you know, it's a back and forth. Oh, no, Gourmet Pens is here. Hello. What else? I'm assembling my Grail pen, a Ranga 3C in yellow black ebonite, with a medium cursive italic Jovo nib from FP Nibs and inked with platinum citrus black. Opinions on that? Well, I haven't used that pen model, but I think that nib would be great. Yeah. Someone is lending me a pen from FP Nibs, a special nib, so I shall check that out soon. My Visconti Rembrandt Special Ops has a black nib, and it's definitely drier than my other Rembrandt. Yeah, interesting. We're going to have to do a poll on this. I'll try to do that on Instagram if I don't forget. Like, do something with a black nibs dry or black nibs not dry. I think it will be interesting. Do you have any pens from custom pen makers, like from Instagram and such? I'm just looking. I don't think so. I mean, I have this pen, but that's a Ranga pen with a rushi done by Tamanuri Studio. That is in a way custom, but I don't have custom made pens. No. A vid on different nib types would be appreciated too. The common ones and maybe a few specialty. Yes, I have that. I have that, Jenny. It's I'm pretty sure it's called specialty nibs. And I do have writing samples, I think. Yeah, I won't say it's called specialty nibs, and I have like an oblique and a stub and that kind of stuff. It's in there. Yeah, yeah. You can check that out if you find it interesting. Can you do a review of the Canwright heritage? Yeah, I tried to get Canwright in the past, but it turned out to be pretty difficult. But I can look. What else do we have? Yeah, that's nice to hear. Someone says, I agree with you and I prefer the kind Mr. Brown. Yes, we try. We try. It's difficult, but I have to come back to the discussion because it's, you have to, no, you don't have to. I think it's a complicated discussion because on the one hand, as a reviewer, your job is to be honest about products. If you're not honest, then what's the point doing a review? But on the other hand, I think all I was trying to say, and I think you got that, but it's difficult because you also have to be aware of what it is you are saying and what effects that will have. So I also understand that people would say no, but you should be honest regardless. And I mean, I am honest. It's not that I hold back. It's just a matter of how do you formulate those things, and what's the consequence of you saying those things about a certain pen, right? So it's complicated. Pen reviewing is a complicated profession. Won't you agree? Anyway, do you feel... Anyway, but thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that, everyone. Thank you. Do you feel Japanese brands like Platinum, Sailor, and Pilot ask more than what their pens are worth? Realistically, yes, but then so do Western brands. I think you're hard pressed to find a pen that is really worth penny for penny what you pay for it. Some are better than others. I mean, a $20 pen will be closer than a $200 pen, and that will be closer than a $2,000 pen, right? But yeah, I think there's always... I mean, it's a profitable business, and it's also a matter of it's a luxury product, so the markup can be quite substantial. Yeah. Personally, I feel Sailor and Platinum are asking too much for their pens outside Japan. Oh, that, yeah, okay, and that's another issue. That's a compounding factor. Pilot, for example, I don't have the Platinum and Sailor prices in my mind from Japan, just from the top of my head. But Pilot asks way more, for example, in Europe for their pens than they ask for the same pens in Japan. Now, export and then import charges for the sellers. I understand all that. But I've talked to a couple of Dutch pen vendors, people who sell pens on a large scale. They said, yeah, but this is not us. We don't mark up these pens excessively. We are told by Pilot, you have to ask this price for that pen. And I believe them. There was no reason not to believe them. And that becomes an issue. At some point, a bottle of Iroshizuku ink was going to cost something like 80 euros, if I remember correctly, in Europe. Well, that's disproportionate for an ink that makes no sense. And a lot of the companies said, yeah, we're not gonna ask that. Nobody's gonna buy the ink at that price, right? So I see the point. I understand better what you mean now. Yes, there definitely is some of that. And yes, that's disturbing. And then, of course, you can purchase the pen in Japan through, say, eBay or something, a Pensachi, like we talked about before. But then you have, in many countries, especially Europe, you have import duties, right? So you still have to pay taxes. But sometimes when you buy the pen in Japan and you pay the international shipping and you pay the import, you're still a few hundred euros cheaper, like a few hundred euros cheaper and it would be for you to purchase a pen in your own country. And yes, I know that at least Pilot has an issue with that, and maybe Platinum and Sailor do as well. I was a little less aware of those, but Pilot I know for sure. And I'm not trying to harp on Pilot. I just don't fully understand the reasoning, because it seems to me like less people would buy your pens that way, right? Maybe it's a matter of trying to keep it exclusive to your country or something like that, but you also want to make money. It's a company that wants to make money and sell that product. So I never fully understood that reasoning, but it is a thing. Oh, greetings from Tilburg. Hello, greetings back. Did you know I was born in Tilburg? I was born in Tilburg. Have you used a Lamy ST? What's a Lamy ST? Another studio? Lamy ST. I haven't seen that one. I have not used it. So unfortunately, I cannot comment on its good and smooth pen. But it's Lamy, so I'm sure it's going to be a good pen. They make pretty solid pens. It's a little weird that some fine nibs are broads and some broads, but beyond, if you can move past that, I think Lamy makes a very solid pen. It's a very it's you have to like that design, but you know, it's a thing. That's an interesting question. Isn't being kind something between real people? I think so, but even behind companies are people. So I try to bear that in mind in the way I do a review. And again, it's not a matter of holding back or not telling the truth, but it's just a reasoning process of what does it mean when I say this. It's very easy to say this pen's a piece of crap. I think it's a little harder to try and look at the pen from a positive perspective and say, well, you know, it's not for me. There are some things that I don't like about it. There are some objective errors. If a pen doesn't write, that's an objective error. There's no rationalizing or justifying that. But if it's a matter of, yeah, I don't like that color, that's a different matter. So it's a complicated process. How do I disassemble Lamy Z28 converters? The Lamy Z28 converters can be disassembled by taking, I just put them away, but this takes some effort. You can gently unscrew the metal, not unscrew, just pull off the metal ring towards the back, and then the whole thing comes apart. It's not easy, and you can also damage the converter that way, because that metal ring can bend out of shape and you can't put it back on, and you kind of have to do like a twisty motion to get that piston out, and that can warp the ink reservoir. So it's not necessarily something that's super easy. Have I had a chance to write with the Pilot Sterling? No, I have not. Where can you buy Mont Blanc nibs? You cannot from Mont Blanc, but you may be able to find one on eBay. Is the universe a simulation? What do you think? Yeah, there's all kinds of very interesting theories, of course, about the universe, and simulation is one. And there also are some serious scientists who believe that is true. Another favorite theory that I really enjoy is that basically you are a cosmos and a cosmos and a cosmos, because you think of the traditional way to look at an atom with a nucleus, and then you have the little electrons flying around it, and then that kind of looks like a sun with planets flying around it, and then this way you go from something small to bigger to bigger to bigger to bigger, and that might suggest that inside an atom is also, that's an entire little sort of cosmos in itself, and then in there might be even smaller. But yeah, you know, I understand the point of that. I don't think we will necessarily find out the answer to such a question. But I think that you have to ask yourself, at least that's what I try to do in those contexts, what does it matter? Well, there are some consequences, for example, in ways of determinism and free will. But let's assume, just for the fun of it, oh, this is going to be a very complicated discussion. I'm going to keep it short. Imagine just for the fun of it that you have free will and you're actually in charge of your actions. There's very substantial evidence to suggest that that may not be the case. But let's assume, right? Well, you're still responsible for what you're doing. Even if everything is determined and you say you hurt someone, then you still hurt that person, right? So I think you can still be held responsible. So then the question is, if you try to lead the best life that you can, be as kind as you can, be as supportive of others as you can, do those kinds of things, then maybe it doesn't really matter whether all this is a simulation or a cosmos and a cosmos, whether the universe had a beginning or whether it did not have a beginning, because then you're just doing the best thing you can. And I always think that that matters, that you try to be the best person you can within the parameters you have to work with. And then maybe it doesn't really matter what is really going on, I think. This can be a very, very long discussion, so put it that way. Lamy or Pilot? Yeah, that depends on what you want. They're both good pens. I wouldn't be able to pick one over the other. Who do you enjoy watching on YouTube, provided you watch YouTube? Yes, I have. There are a couple things I like watching on YouTube. One would be probably little use to you. There's a Flemish cooking channel called Njam, which I really like, but that's in Dutch. So unless you've mastered the Dutch language or super proficient in it, that would be a challenge. Videos I really like, I've recommended him before, is Sam Webster. Sam Webster is an anatomist who doesn't do any really scary, bloody things on YouTube, but he has a very nice channel on anatomy, and he shows anatomy with all kinds of models and general anatomy. Sometimes that interests me most, neuroanatomy, but sometimes other things. And you always learn something from his videos. And if you like learning things, then he has a very, very clear explanation style, which I really like. And he teaches in the UK. That's really cool. Sam Webster. That's also the name of the channel. And it's really neat. So he comes very recommended, I think. Yeah, some other like random things, but that's really a channel that I always check his new videos, and I have notifications on for that, which I don't have for a whole lot of channels. The best thing about the triple tail is that it accepts the Noodler's 308 refillable cartridges with screw tops that screw into the pen. Yes, I'm going to have to, I'll try to check one out. Besides eBay, is there any place to get vintage or classic pens? Well, yeah, same channels I mentioned: Fountain Pen Network, Virtual Pen Show, penboard.de, these kinds of things. Yeah. Have you checked out the, I never know how to pronounce this brand name, if it's ASA or ASA, but the Nauka Flora. Sorry, I think I hit the microphone. They were once going to send me a Nauka, but that never happened. So I will try with them again. I haven't seen that particular material, but it would be nice. Would you consider doing ink reviews again? Probably not. I know that they are popular, but doing ink reviews is an enormous amount of work because your pens have to be meticulously clean. There's always complaints about the lighting, the different papers. It's so much work that I don't really have that time. So I'm focusing on pen reviews. I may do something occasionally, but that would be a very occasional thing. Definitely not 1 or 2 a month. That would more like 1 or 2 a year, maybe. Just because you have all the different nibs and all the different things. And I realize they're popular, but I don't have that amount of time. Do you have an opinion on Conway Stewart pens, the Churchill series? Yeah, they're nice. There's the Winstons and then there's the Churchills. The Winstons have a brass liner and the Churchills are both quite big, and the Churchills do not. I haven't owned a Churchill, but I have owned a Winston, and they're both very nice pens, I would say. What's your opinion of Wancher pens from Japan? I have nothing against them. I've reviewed the Dream pen. I've reviewed, so you can check out the review. What else do we have? Oh, that's an interesting question. Not pen related, but what are your opinions on polyamory, ethical non-monogamy gaining popularity in recent years? Or is that more of a US thing? Yeah, I find that interesting. I know it is something that's on the rise. And I'm silent because I never really know what to think. I would never judge people. I would never judge people for saying, well, I cannot be in a monogamous relationship. I want to be in a polyamorous relationship. But to me, I try to put myself in the position of what would that be like, right? Because you asked my opinion. So I try to think about what would it be like. And here is I think the issue that I have. I find it hard to imagine that there would be no jealousy involved from one partner or the other at some point. Now, of course, if you both engage in that, let's say that you have two partners who are basically a couple, but they both have two partners each. So they have that partner, but there's also someone else. I find it hard to believe that there would not be any jealousy of any kind because you're going out with him or with her or whatever, but not with the other person at that point. And then, this may just be me, but it sounds emotionally very draining to me, because then what if you have a fight with that partner, but not with that partner? Then do your negative emotions towards that partner spill over into your relationship with the other partner? Now, I don't know what that's like, but to me it sounds very complicated. And that it is on the rise, because I think so. At least maybe it's always been there, but it's just that we hear about it more now because we have all social media and people are commenting about all these kinds of things. I think some people cannot be monogamous. I think that's just the thing. Like, some people cannot be that. And I'm not saying that that's an excuse or something, but I think for some people it's very, very difficult. But then the question is, then should you be in a monogamous relationship? But then maybe a polyamorous thing is the only thing you can be in. So I won't say all this without judgment, because it's everybody's lifestyle. As long as everyone agrees and everything is consensual, then I don't see what would be wrong with it. And maybe it's possible that our traditional way of looking at relationships is outdated and is in need of an overhaul. Maybe, I mean, wasn't it the statistic that at least 50% of marriages end in divorce? So maybe if you have another partner, that becomes less of an issue. I don't know. It's complicated. It's a very good question, but very complicated, I think. I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but yeah, I have thought about it just from I'll call it sort of like a psycho-social, maybe philosophical viewpoint of, yes, complicated. Yeah. Anyway, it was a good question. Thank you. Is that why the present platinum shoe is now worth 360 plus, while 260 in Japan? Yes, probably. Yeah. Isn't FPN not accepting new members? I think there was something along those lines, but I don't know. The issue with FPN is that it's basically a man, right? And a Dutch man too. And he would host. Like, he he paid for the hosting of FPN. Now imagine the traffic that FPN gets. So at some point there was issues with them accepting ads and that kind of stuff. But like, it's a dude. It's imagine that you tomorrow say, I'm going to make a fountain pen forum. There's no forums around. I make that, and it becomes the biggest fountain pen forum in the world. And you have to pay all the hosting costs. So I understand. I also see that I could see how at some point it just the sheer volume of members would be untenable. So I don't know. It's complicated. That's not a complicated issue. If your college's bookstore would take on a fountain pen section in the physical store, what would you list for them to carry? I would probably go for something. Well, it has to be something that's not too expensive, and I think something that's very reliable. So I think I'd be looking at something like Parker, Vector, Parker, what's the other one? Jotter, Parker, maybe IM, these kinds of things. This is not sponsored by Parker, but I think those are relatively affordable pens that also write pretty well. So that's probably what I would go for, something like that. Yeah, that wouldn't be a Visconti section or something, because that's not feasible. It's not realistic to think you would, students would necessarily go there to pay for that kind of stuff. Some might, but I wouldn't. I don't think they would sell a whole lot. Any future plans for a collab with anyone? Yes, there are. I try to set that up, but I think that's going to, we were in touch. I think we're going to try and do that this week. And it will be an Instagram thing, not a YouTube thing. Hello from Georgia. Hello, the Eurasian Georgia. Yes, not the US Georgia. Yes, yes. Speaking of disgusting grossness, who do you think was the first person who decided to boil a lobster and eat it? Yeah, but you can say that about anything, right? Like, I find this fascinating because I like to cook. Who decided, let's take some egg yolks, mustard, vinegar, traditionally some Worcestershire sauce, salt and pepper, and then slowly add oil while whisking and see what happens, and you have mayonnaise. Like who thinks of that? Who thinks through all those steps? Oh yeah, mayonnaise, that's pretty good. Like, it's kind of weird, isn't it? But it does work, and people do that. So it's I find it fascinating. All right. Is the pilot Stargazer discontinued? I'm not sure. It could be. Oh. I overscrolled again. It's not that difficult to scroll, is it? Okay. I was almost there. Oh, yeah, there we go. Is the pilot Stargazer discontinued? Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. Yes. If you were to wear a mask, what would it look like? I have a mask. It has a skull and roses on it. It's not a very aggressive looking, but I like it. Someone made it for me. Someone says, I thought it was supposed to be. So we're talking about the Stargazer. No more restock. Thank you, because I don't know. What does Stephen read questions from? It looks like it's not from YouTube chat. Yes, it's from the YouTube chat. Twisby, silicone grease or oil comes in a cute tiny bottle with the pens. Difficult to dispense for me. Have you had issues getting the silicone out? Yes, and I also have a bit of an issue with the very liquid silicone grease they provide. It's not about Twisby, but my problem with that is it's very liquid. And if that trickles down and gets into the feed, your pen won't write anymore. So I like to use the stuff that I showed before. The actual silicone grease, that is something that you just, the hair, that you just rub on something, because that's not liquid. It won't trickle down a barrel. I'm not saying that liquid stuff will do that, but it always scares me a little bit that something like that may happen and accidentally ends up where it should not end up. Oh, yes. Reebok or Nike, Puma, Adidas. I have zero, absolutely zero say about that. because I don't wear any of this stuff. So sorry. I have a fountain pen which writes underwater and also writes on plastic bags. It writes other words too. Nice. Good joke. That's a Roger joke. Why are Parker 51 pens so cherished by the fountain pen community? You tell me, man. I don't know. No, I'm serious. Here's why. Because they were revolutionary at the time. And they were ahead of their time in many ways. The materials that we use, the design, the hooded nib, at the time when nibs were like the bigger the better, that Parker chose to use a hooded nib. So I think there's a lot to be said for Parker 51s. Having said that, it's not a pen that appeals to me, but I just don't like that design. That's just a reflection on me, not on the pen, right? I just don't like that design. I like other designs. Why they stopped manufacturing them, I don't know if they had issues with them or not. They did do a relaunch at some point, but they're still very collectible too. Speaking of feedback, Sailor nibs seem to have the perfect amount of feedback. What are some of the best companies that use Sailor nibs? Well, Sailor, of course. It's not like Bock or Jovo that dozens of companies use Sailor nibs. They're made by Sailor, so they use Insula pens. But having said that, there is the Cross Peerless, which does use a Sailor nib, and there's another one that I just can't think of right now. But there is another. I would say there's another brand that also has a Sailor nib, but it's not that many brands. Do you know anything about the status of Conid pens? No, I don't. You have to contact them. Sorry. How do you think your pen collection will be different in 5 and 10 years' time? I think I have moved away from certain pens. I think I have certain materials that I really like and that I don't necessarily need to collect and have every pen ever made in that material, but I just really like those materials. It doesn't mean that those are all super expensive pens. It also doesn't mean that all of those are super affordable pens, but I have become quite picky in what I like in a pen, what I look for in a pen, filling system, the nib. It doesn't have to be like all cross point type super fancy nibs, but I do have high standards for what I want in a pen. Whether that will change, I don't know. There are some pens that I have now that I think I would never sell this, but then I thought that 5 years ago too, and I ended up selling those pens. I don't really know if I can really make a very concrete prediction, but I remain to curate very carefully and only keep those things that I really, really like. Would you consider yourself to be a fountain pen addict? Is there a line between simply appreciating or being addicted? I purchase a pen and eagerly research the next purchase. Is that normal behavior? I would say that's pretty normal behavior. I wouldn't call myself a pen addict. I would not know where the demarcating line is, but I think people who indiscriminately buy pens just to buy pens, they may be a little addicted. Like, oh, I need another, I need this, I need this. Oh, that comes out, I want that, oh, I want this too. I'm not saying that in a judgmental fashion, but all I'm saying is that I think is that's not where I would want to be, me personally. And some other people want to be there, and they find that very rewarding. That's fine. I just don't. That's I think the best answer I can give. Sorry, this is very loud, isn't it? All right. How do you find good deals on pens? Well, you keep your eyes out. No, you keep your eyes open. You keep an eye out. Don't keep your eyes out. So that you have to be the right time in the right place. And don't forget that through my generous sponsors, through my website, you can also get a 10% discount through a number of vendors, right? I don't want to name them here simply because I'm likely to leave one out, and then they would. I don't want to do that, but check my website. Yeah, I have all those banners on one side, and most of those have a 10% discount if you just click the banner. So there is that. That's a way to get a good deal. Minute. Are you still producing serious Nibs videos? We haven't in a while, but we were thinking of picking that up again. So we'll see. We'll see what we can do. What else? I love the architect Mark B ground for me at the show. I said, how about this one? Showed him Twisby Go, and he said, yes, Twisby nibs are fine for grinding. Yes. Yeah, I think they use Yovo now. I wanted to say. Yeah. All right. Do you think the Leonardos are worth the 500 euros for their limited editions? Sorry, any pen is worth what you're willing to pay for it, right? So I mean, I don't think they're worth it less or more than other pen brands are. Like if you think it's worth 500 euros, then it is. Like it just depends on what you are willing to spend. If I want to review pens for my personal collections initially, what do I expect for at the beginning in the form of infrastructure, etc.? Well, you would need some sort of camera, of course, which in some cases is just a phone. Smartphones have pretty decent cameras these days. It's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty good. That's it, I would say. With that and a YouTube channel or some other, but YouTube, I think, makes sense to upload stuff. That's pretty much it. And then it will take time. You have to be noticed by people. People have to start subscribing to you. You will not be able to monetize your channel until you have, I want to say 1,000 subscribers, but I could be wrong about that. Don't expect much in ways of monetization either, because in fountain pens, that's a very small niche. You're not going to get 500,000 subscribers, most likely. You're not going to make $1 million with all that. But that's, I would say, what you expect most, should expect most. You don't need a perfect setup. You don't need a studio setup, but you can get those things out more if it get those things over time as it turns out that you like things. You like it. So you can get those types of products like better studio lighting, for example, if it turns out that you like the reviewing stuff. Studio lights are still on my list. What's the psychology of learning? That is a complicated question because that depends a little bit on what type of learning, because there are different types of learning. So to briefly, traditional study of learning kind of started with classical conditioning, Pavlov, dogs, discovered through accident, but basically clicking sound from a machine and meat powder, clicking sound, meat powder, clicking sound, meat powder. At some point, the dogs start to drool just to the clicking sound because they know that announces meat powder. Then, so this is Pavlov, and then later Watson, and then you go to people like Skinner, who kind of came up with operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is different because that really deals with behavior. So if you reward certain behavior, that behavior will repeat itself. If you punish behavior, that behavior will cease at some point. There are way more complexities to that, but that's basically it. This is Skinner, operant conditioning. Then there are other forms of learning. For example, Albert Bandura, the famous Bobo doll experiment, which you should look up on YouTube because it's a lot of fun to see. He basically suggested that people also learn certain things in ways that are not through conditioning. For example, the illustration I always give students is, imagine your first driving lesson. You got in a car and the instructor probably handed you a key and you knew exactly what to do with the key. You may have to look at how exactly it goes in, but you know what to do with the key because you've seen other people do it. If you would have to learn how to drive a car through operant conditioning, that would be disastrous because the instructor would sit next to you. Let's say you understand the key, you turn the key, the car starts, and then what do? So you could put your foot in the gas, like on the accelerator all the way down, right? And the instructor says no. And then if it's a stick shift car, you may put your foot in the, let's say first on the brake, the instructor says no. And then you put one foot in the clutch and the instructor says yeah. And then you look around, you try to steer, and the instructor says no. This would not work, right? That's not a way you can learn a complex process like that. That's what you do with animals, but step by step, reinforce things. But that for humans, it doesn't work, not for complicated things. So there, observation learning helps, and you have probably already learned, because being in a car with other people from the moment you were a kid, right, likely, you have seen a lot of these things. You know that you start by turning the key. Some cars are different, I know that, but like that. And you know that maybe there's something you have to do with the gears if it's a stick shift car, and even if it's an automatic, you have to, So those kinds of things you have seen by learning. You have learned by seeing. The wrong way around. So in a nutshell, that is a basic distinction of learning. Then there is the whole neuroscience behind learning, which is very complicated. If you want to spend a very fun Sunday afternoon, then look up long-term potentiation and figure out that process, because it's understandable, but that is something that students often struggle with quite a bit, because it is difficult. It's just a difficult process, but it's a very cool process. So there is that. What else? Anybody had a chance to use Sailor Compass fountain pen? I have not, so if anyone else had, feel free to join in. Leonardo Grande, have you seen the collaboration with Brooks Resin Primary Manipulation? Brooks is extremely creative. I have 2 of his resins. This one seems quite busy. Were you tempted? I actually have not seen that, Leonardo, but Jonathan Brooks is a super sweet guy. I really, really like. So I will check it out. I've just missed that one. Hey there. Do you think customizations will increase in the pen world? For example, Montegrappa will no longer sell their flagship 1930 extra pen to retailers. You can only buy this via the Montegrappa website. On the site, you can choose the color, nib size, trim, color materials. Yeah, I think that is a potential future. I know there was another company that was working on setting something like that up. I think that's a future for pens, because I think that's where people want to go. They want to get the feeling that they have designed something, that they have something that is exclusive, that is not run-of-the-mill, and I think this is a future. This is a way to do that. Absolutely. I think whatever the principles that motivate them, our action should be modulated by compassion. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a great way to look at things. Okay, I'm going to try to scroll here without overdoing it. Do you use pen holder, pen stand? Not really. I know they exist. I have reviewed, I think, 2 different kinds. I don't really have a use for it. Have you tried the Montegrappa Sailor collaboration pen? No, I have not. But that is pretty nice. Worrying sales. Sailor pen company is in the process of being bought out, and distributors consider the prices will increase. Any comments? Yeah, I heard similar things. Yeah, it's hard enough, I think, to stay afloat. The world is a complicated place right now. And yes, I could foresee how this might lead to issues with prices, for example. But beyond that, I wait and see. Wait and see what happens. Yeah, exactly. The ending to Men in Black. That's the universe and universe. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to look at it, I think. Yeah. In the watch world, it is recommended to buy from the same retailers to get better discounts and first refusal on watches, I suppose. Do you think the fountain pen industry will move this way? Yeah, I don't know, but I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a good relationship with a certain retailer. and that could lead to some discounts for you. Often it does, yeah. But more importantly to me is also that if there is any issues, that they will help you out. I have had pens serviced that I hadn't even purchased through those retailers, but I had a good relationship with them. I said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll send it in for service, no problem. We'll help you." And I think that to me is a very important aspect, because you get to know people and you become more of a part of that. Have you considered a video on Flex Pen? I may have. I've reviewed Flex Pens. I don't think I have a dedicated video to Flex, but again, in that specialty Nibs video, there may be a Flex Pen. I don't remember exactly. It's a while ago that I recorded that. What else do we have? What do you do for fun? I like walking in general. So I'm fortunate to live in a city which has something absurd, like I think 150 kilometers of hiking trails within the city, which is insane. And a lot of them are actually connected to each other as well. So it's really fun. I also like cooking. I do enjoy reading about all sorts of things. I don't find myself reading a lot of novels, but I do read a lot of non-fiction, which I always find helpful, entertaining, informative, etc. Yeah, here are two. A good suggestion. People want ink review. You should check out Gadget Stop 123, who's in the middle of an extensive ink review series. Yeah, exactly, and there are others too. I think that's yeah. Other people are very welcome to do ink reviews. Sorry, that's corrections. Gadget Stop 321. Okay, thank you. Did you move the skeleton head? I feel either the camera or the skeleton being moved. Well, this is a special skeleton. Sometimes I wake up and he's beside the bed, or he's in a spot where I didn't leave him. Is it concerning? A little bit. Do I worry about it? Not really. But if one day I disappear, could be Roger. I'm going to have so much fun with Roger on Halloween. You have no idea. All right. Wood pens. Do you not own or review them just for personal aesthetic reasons, or is it just a more practical, objective reason? What the hell are you talking about? No, I'm just kidding. I have one wooden pen, but my issue with wooden pens, it is a little bit of all of that. I have no issues reviewing them. I've reviewed a few. I actually have a review of another Ryan Krusak coming up. I don't know when, but that's a little while away. But a friend lent me a Ryan Krusak pen. Wood is a little bit more maintenance intensive. Depends a bit on where you live. I live in a very dry area. So here I would have to make sure that those pens stay a little oiled, because they will crack. There are some issues. If ink hits a wooden pen, that can be, depending on how it's treated, but that could be stained permanently. Is that an issue? Well, to me, a pen's a tool, and I actually use it, so not really. I have nothing against wooden pens. It's just that these are some considerations that may make them a little bit more intense sometimes to use. I have no issues using them. I have no issues reviewing them. If you give me the choice between, you can pick one of these two pens to personally own, and one is a wooden pen and one is not, then typically I go for the one that's not wood. Even though I like the material, but in a pen, it's kind of specific, and it's not something that really appeals to me a whole lot, but that's just me. What alternatives are there if you already have a Pelican M800, Montblanc 146, Homo sapiens, Aurora 88, Onoto, Magna, hundreds of pens out there? Here to test my luck. Could you help me get my dream pen, Pilot Vanishing Point? They're for sale if you want them, I think. I don't know, Eddie. Oh, we have, yes, this is a follow-up to the polyamory. I enjoy it. Regarding the jealousy bit, it does take a lot of communication with feelings and being very honest with one's emotions. In my experience, it's the same amount of work as monogamy, just different kinds. Yeah, well, I would understand that. I mean, clearly that the communication part remains an important aspect of monogamous relations as well. Very interesting. Interesting. It's an interesting discussion. I enjoy that. Triple tails. I'll scroll again. Triple tails were supposed to be big as a flex nib, but I've seen a reviewer lose patience with them railroading. I just find it a very nice pen to write with. Yeah, I've had that with Noodlers and Nippon sets, that some of which just didn't write or didn't flex, and no matter what happened to them, they just simply refused to write. So it could be something like that. Yeah. Have you used Midori MD paper? I grabbed some recently, and the pad it comes in is horrendously inconvenient. Shame as the paper rocks. I have not used Midori pads. I have used the Midori notebooks. Yeah, but not the pads. The paper is interesting. Yeah, it's yeah. I'm not sure if it's 100% my paper, but it is. It was interesting. Yeah. Of all the filling mechanisms that you use, what is your preference in terms of reliability? Exclude converters and eyedroppers. Piston, lever, filler, button. I don't like button fillers because they have a lot of moving parts that, especially vintage pens, can break. Lever fillers, same thing. I like pistons. I really like the Conid, the bulk filler. It's yes, somewhat complicated system, but the ink capacity is huge. You can take the whole thing apart and clean it without any issue, and that I really enjoy. Pistons are nice too, but that's what that'd be my favorite. Well, hello, strings and pedals. I had to say it that way too. You have an interesting accent. Where are you from? That's on a need-to-know basis. No, what do I have here now? Why do I have all this crap on my face in this episode? What is going on? Weird. Anything else? No, I think this is attached to me. No, okay. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm Dutch. What do you think of Pilot capless faceted fountain pen? I thought the faceted ones were actually nicer than the round ones. I find them a little bit more comfortable. So I like it. All right. Careful here. Scrolling. What else do we have? Tatcha is another brand that uses Sailor Nibs. Yes, that's the one I was looking for. Thank you. Thank you both. 2 people commented on that. What's the name of the book you've shown some time ago regarding fountain pens? The one on nibs, maintenance, and so on. It's called Fountain Pens. So that one was an unexpected one. It's by Peter Twydle. Twyddle. Also a nice guy. I sent him a pen to repair once. It was a Mont Blanc with a crack in it, and he said, "I can't fix this. You need to send it to Mont Blanc you didn't need a new barrel, but I filled the crack for you, and there's no charge." I still ended up sending it to Mont Blanc, but I thought that was really kind. His dad was Arthur Twydle, who was a famous pen repair person in the UK. But it's a nice book. It's not big. But it's a nice book. Very good information. All right. 18 Karat Flex Nib, while ever sharp, Mont Blanc or Santini Super Flexi. Why, in your opinion, Nibmeister don't add flex to the 18K nib and say they're not suitable for flex? It has something to do with the alloy. With 14K, they can. I would always be personally hesitant to have a Nibmeister add flex to a nib because often they shave off the sides or they make it thinner at the bottom, and you're really taking off material. So it's not a nib that was ever meant to be flex, but people are obsessed with flex, so they all want flex added to them more. But there are consequences of such a decision. Of the Wild Eversharp, the Mont Blanc, the Santini, I would have to try the Santini again because I think I've only used it briefly. I was really quite impressed by the Mont Blanc. It's not perfect, but it is very good. It's also very expensive. The Santini nibs I actually found really nice as well. Yeah. What else do we have? Wancher also uses Sailor nibs. Interesting. I did not know. I thought they had Jovo nibs on the Dream pens, but I could be wrong. What else do we have? The Peerless 125 is a very nice writer. People are commenting on that. I like it. I like it too. Do you think a sane human mind can conceive pure real chaos with no logic and thinking? With no logic and thinking. A co-worker put me onto this question and I think no. Also, any tips on making fried chicken? These are, on the one hand, an incredibly existential question, and on the other hand, a good question. For the fried chicken, I would use a mix with some buttermilk because that gives a really good result. Maybe that should be a next cooking video because I kind of wanted to experiment with that. Fried chicken. That's a different matter. The chaos. This is a very complicated question. I think complete chaos is difficult. Also, we know, for example, that when you let people generate random numbers, they're often not very random at all. And often there is a pattern. Even if they may not be aware of that pattern, there is a pattern in the numbers they generate. So I think complete chaos is very hard for us to come up with and to actually really, without thinking, very, very complicated process for us to generate. Yeah. Then on the other hand, look at the world right now. And then we have quite a bit of chaos, I would say. Seeing how, I don't know if that's an answer. I don't know if it is a clear answer, but that would be my attempt. Seeing how you're into scientific skepticism and skeptical thinking, do you know about Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy? I have to check that out more. I have heard of it. It's on my list of things to check out. Yeah, I shall report back. Hello, Rob. What else do we have? What else? Has anyone bought stuff from Goldspot? Yeah. Never had. Well, probably shouldn't say that. They have sent me items to review, and that's always been very pleasant interaction. I have never had issues with Goldspot. I have never heard bad things. I mean, there's always someone who has a bad experience with the company, but I have not heard a substantial bad thing about Goldspot. Really, no. Good experiences, I would say. Hey there, I've never had Leonardo. Would you recommend the gold or steel nib? If there's no constriction in price, then I would say the gold nibs. I have found their gold nibs. I find them a little bit more pleasant. They're a bit bouncier than the steel nibs. Having said that, the steel nibs are good. You can also tune steel nibs easily. I prefer the feeling of the gold nibs, but they are much more expensive. So but you say there's no constraints regarding the price. So yeah. All right. What else? How is a Lamy 2000 extra fine nib performance compared to a fine nib? Well, one would hope it to be finer. With Lamy, you never really know. I'm not sure I ever used a 2000 extra fine. What else do we have? Not a pen question, but I'm looking to pursue my postgrad for molecular biology in the Netherlands, Wageningen. Any thoughts? Yes, excellent university. Technical university, very, very good. So do it. The Netherlands is an interesting country. It's not for everyone. It's smaller. It's very small, but it's. I think academic climate. I haven't been to Wageningen as a university. I haven't attended it, but I think you'll find the climate quite pleasant. Dutch scientific climate is quite nice, as opposed to some countries with this real cutthroat thing and such. At least in psychology, it wasn't. Can't be 100% sure about molecular biology, but I think it would be nice. Yeah. Any pens on your near future wish list? Not really, honestly. Very happy with my LB6. So that satisfied a craving I had for 2 years. I have my big Conway Stewart great exhibition in the US that will come to me at some point. I look forward to that. I have nothing on my list, really. I have a very cool project come in. I say project, it wasn't a project for me. I just asked a friend, how about if you 3D print pens, do this? And he said, oh, interesting. And that happened. I'm not going to tell you anything about it yet, but it should be on the way to me soon. I think that's going to be very interesting. To me, that will be very interesting. That's really vague, isn't it? Yeah, it's called a teaser trailer. All right. We have about 5 minutes. What do you think the fountain pen future will look like? People at work seem really confused that I, as a young person, use a fountain pen. Don't care about other people. Don't worry about them. Just do it. We've had these kinds of discussions before. I think there are other options. I still think that digitizing writing is something where you might see some developments. Pens with gadgets in them, like pens with little recording devices. I think that's still a thing. I mean, you have those spy pens from China and such that have a little video camera and that kind of stuff. But I'm talking more about something like if you have a little sort of like a dictaphone and a fountain pen, I think that'd be very useful. But then again, you have pens, so I guess you could just write down your thoughts. But you know what I mean? Like that I think would be very interesting. Do you see yourself doing pen videos in 10 years? Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Like this January is going to be my 10th year. Like then it's been 10 years. So a long time. Have you tried a SBREBROWN Flex? Yes, they're good. Hello, Tanya. Hope you're doing well. That's a deep question. What are your top 5 factors for evaluating quality of a pen? What are your top brands for quality? Are in-house nibs inherently better? I wouldn't say they're necessarily inherently better, but you could have pretty good expectations of them. I think that's a good final question for today. So for me, a couple of things matter. One is the overall fit and finish. If something has poor tolerances, then I don't think that is a particularly high standard, something that can probably be improved. I look at that. Of course, you look at the writing quality. How does it write? Is it pleasant? Does it write in a non-smooth manner? Is it very smooth? Is there issues with the ink flow? Another thing that's very important to me is comfort. And that's always a very subjective thing, because some people like pens like this, and then other people like pens like this. So it depends a lot on what you find comfortable. But yeah, I think that's a very important factor. So what did I say? There's the tolerances, there's the writing, there's the comfort level. For me, it's also a matter of design. I like certain designs. I don't like other designs. The super minimalist metal pens are really loved by some people, and that's great, because that's a thing. Like that's their preference, and I like that. But that's not my type of pen. I like I'm just like that. I prefer this to a very minimalist pen. But that's just taste. And of course, the final thing, a very important factor, is also the price. A high price does not guarantee a high quality, but at a high price, you may expect certain quality, right? Again, it's not always there, but that's something you could expect. So that, to me, that's kind of what I have in mind, I think, when I try to evaluate a pen. What else? Well, we have about a minute left. I think that should be a good moment to slowly start saying our goodbyes. I will try to be here again next week. Thank you all for joining me. This is always a lot of fun. I try to get to as many questions as I can. As always, here's the kind reminder when people ask me, is there something we can do to support you because we love your videos? Yes, there is. Don't forget that there is patreon.com/SBREBROWN where you can support my videos if you want. And you can do that for as little as $1 a month. And if you don't want to do that, there's no problem either, because I love you just as much. But of course, I'm always very, very grateful for my patrons and those people who choose to support me. That's really amazing and a great honor. So there we have it. I hope you all have a good week, and I will try to be here again next week, and I will see you then. Bye.